Good afternoon and welcome to the City Council meeting of May 29th. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask that you all rise for the singing of our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you to our very own Tennille Towns for the singing of our national anthem, and to the National Film Board for the images of our country. I would now like to read our land acknowledgement. The city respectfully acknowledges the Beaver, Cree, Dene, and Métis people as the original caretaker of these lands and surrounding areas. We are grateful to live, learn, work, and play on Treaty 8 territory within Turtle Island, and acknowledge these lands have been home to diverse and sovereign First Nations and Inuit nations since time immemorial. Moving to the adoption of the previous council minutes, Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to move that Council adopt the minutes of the City Council meeting held May 15, 2023 as presented.
Thank you for that. That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question.
Councillor Berg in favor.
Councillor O'Toole. I think we've lost Councillor O'Toole for a minute, so we'll go with that. And that's carried unanimously. Moving on to the adoption of today's agenda, Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move that Council adopt the agenda with the addition of item 7.5, building purchase.
Perfect. Thank you for that. That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue, I will call the question. Please vote. I'll see if Councillor O'Toole is back with us. Councillor O'Toole, how do you vote?
All in favor.
Councillor O'Toole vote. And Councillor Berg?
In favor.
And that carries unanimously. Today, there are no delegations, and just a reminder, if you are watching online, there's 2 opportunities to speak to council at the 3 p.m. session as well. On the days we are having a 6 p.m. session, there is an opportunity in the evening as well. It's really simple. You go online, fill out a 1-pager, submit your requests in the appropriate timelines, and council loves to have delegations. So if you want to come speak to council, please do so and just follow the paperwork as noted online. Moving on to reports, item 7.1, Declaration of Petition. I will turn it over to CAO Nicolay for introduction.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I just have a couple of opening comments, and then I've included a declaration within the council package that I'll be hoping will be received by council this afternoon. By way of background, the city received a petition related to municipal policing on May the 8th of this year. According to the Municipal Government Act, the petition is not sufficient unless it meets certain requirements. One such requirement is that the petition be signed by electors of the municipality equal to at least 10% of the municipality's population. In the case of Grande Prairie, over 6,000 electors would need to sign a petition in order for the petition to satisfy this requirement. The petition received on May 8, 2023 contains 1,731 unverified signatures, which is an insufficient number of persons to satisfy the above requirements. As a result, the petition is hereby declared to be insufficient as per the requirements of the Municipal Government Act. And arising from that, Madam Chair, I, Robert Nicolay, City Manager for the City of Grande Prairie in the province of Alberta, do solemnly declare that pursuant to the provisions of Section 226 of the Municipal Government Act, Chapter M-26, RCA 2000, the Council of the City of Grande Prairie has received an insufficient petition to, quote, hold a plebiscite to determine whether or not the City of Grande Prairie should create a municipal police force, unquote. The petition is declared to be insufficient on the basis that an insufficient number of persons signed the petition as compared with the number of qualified petitioners who would have been required to sign the petition in order to make the petition sufficient as per the requirements of the Municipal Government Act. And Mayor Clayton, I would ask that that be received by Council this afternoon.
Perfect. So with that, it would be great to have a motion to receive it for information, and there may be questions. Councillor Blackmore.
I would move that we receive City CAO's declaration of insufficiency of petition for information.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I'll call the question. Please vote. Councillor O'Toole, how do you vote? Councillor Bressie, how do you vote? Councillor Bressie votes in favor. And that
I voted already.
That carries unanimously. Thank you for that, Mr. Nicolay. Moving on to item 7.2, the Alberta Municipalities Affordable Housing Resolution. I'll give Mr. Tarrant a moment to get set up. There's a couple resolutions on today's agenda. For those who aren't aware, annually, the City of Grande Prairie Council, as well as administration, attend a fall conference, which at that time resolutions are put forward by municipalities. And every year municipalities have this opportunity. Sometimes ourselves we put forward resolutions, sometimes we support others' resolutions, and there's a couple items in today's agenda. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Tarrant, for introduction.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton, and through the chair. So before you, as the mayor had indicated, there's a couple of resolutions that are looking to be put forward to the Alberta Municipalities Conference in the fall, which would, if endorsed by the membership of all municipalities, or a majority of the municipalities represented there, that Alberta municipalities would advocate to the provincial government on behalf of municipalities for. So there is the three resolutions presented today. Two of them are from other municipalities within the province. So the first one here is the City of Edmonton has reached out and asked whether City Council here would endorse their resolution on affordable housing. And you'll see in the report there are two main requests they're asking the provincial government. One is to increase capital and operating funding to address growing gaps in the affordable housing needs across Alberta. The other one is to amend provincial legislation to exempt nonprofit affordable housing providers from both municipal and education tax and establish clear definitions for when those can take place. Currently, the city does exempt municipal taxes from many affordable housing projects, and in many cases will exempt the provincial education taxes as well. However, it's not clearly defined which ones we are allowed and which ones are not, and so we're asking that this resolution would ask that we have a clear definition for when those can be able to take place. So what the City of Edmonton has already, their council has already endorsed this motion, and they're asking us to second it, asking City Council to second the motion.
Perfect. So comments or questions on the first resolution? Councillor O'Connor.
I was going to do business, so I'm ahead of the thing, so I'll step back. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Blackmore?
Mr. Tarrant, when I read this, I never saw in any part of their resolution a definition for affordable housing. And there's probably 20 or 30 definitions that they could have chosen. I don't know if that's pertinent to the resolution or not, and it wouldn't prevent me from voting in support of it today. But I am wondering if that's something that, a discussion that you might want to have with them, as I think that when it comes to AB Muni's floor, that's a question that may very well be asked. Are we talking affordable housing for people who are currently unhoused, or are we talking about housing for people who are below the poverty line, or what is affordable housing?
Mr. Tarrant?
Through the chair, so that was something that we had asked for them to include, and so within the background they did include a line that comes straight out of the province's affordable housing strategy. So it does note the strategy broadly describes affordable housing as supporting low to moderate income households that cannot attain housing at market rates. So this is not specific to homeless individuals. It's to those that are targeting low to moderate income households.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
All right, I see no one else, so Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to move that Council second the City of Edmonton's Alberta Municipalities resolution regarding affordable housing. I think it's important that we support Edmonton in this and to show that we care about our citizens that have a tough time finding affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue with comments or questions, I will call the question. Please vote. Anybody? It's not tabulating. All right. All right, we have stalled. Oh, let's do this again. It's recalled the vote, so please vote. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you for that, Mr. Tarrant. Moving on to the second resolution for today.
Through the mayor. The next one is it's another request to second a resolution, and this one comes from the City of Airdrie. This one is regarding rent assistance and temporary rent assistance programs. So within the City of Grande Prairie, it's the Grand Spirit Foundation that does administer those programs. And we did reach out to the Grand Spirit Foundation. They fully, on Thursday night, their board fully endorsed the support for this resolution. Should council want to proceed with their support for it, they did provide some numbers there. Currently, there's about 600 people on the Grand Spirit's waiting list looking for some sort of affordable housing options, many of those who would be eligible for the rent assistance programs provided through Grand Spirit. And with that, it's also in alignment with the city's affordable housing strategy. And there is the three requests that are being asked to be made of the provincial government to establish predictable long-term funding, to increase awareness of the programs and to do some better advertising and marketing of it, and to simplify the application process.
All right, comments or questions on the presentation? Councillor Thiessen.
No comments or questions, but I'm prepared to do business as well, similar to Councillor O'Connor, and just jumping in early.
All right, I don't actually see anyone else, so go ahead, Councillor Thiessen.
All right, thank you very much. I would move that Council second the City of Airdrie's Alberta Municipalities resolution regarding rent assistance and temporary rent assistance benefits. Just speaking to this motion as the Grand Spirit Foundation representative, also ASHA representative for the North. This is a topic that keeps coming up throughout the entire province, not just for Grand Spirit. Obviously, we're seeing this from Central Alberta right now, but we're talking about seniors on fixed income that are trying to find ways to make ends meet. We're talking about families of lower incomes. We're also talking about people that are hard to house as well. The rental assistance program goes to help people achieve and retain those nice, warm, safe spaces that they can age in place in and or raise a family in and or get back on their feet on. So I think this is a great resolution, and I'm happy to support it.
Thank you for your comments. So I'll call the question. Please vote. That carries unanimously. Mr. Tarrant.
Thank you. And through the mayor, the final resolution today is one that the City of Grande Prairie is proposing. And this comes from a report that was presented several weeks ago to council regarding medical first response and regarding some of the trends that our fire department is seeing regarding medical first response. What's been noted is that as our fire department is the first responder to many incidents, the length of time that is taking for a paramedic to arrive has been increasing. And the fire department has had greater demands on their time to be involved in some of these calls. Part of that, the first medical response was really to be more an emergency, fewer and far between, and to really support the paramedics when they cannot be there. It's becoming more of a regular service that they've identified, and if that's going to be more of a regular service, one of the requests and one of the suggestions that the fire department asked for was that there be some compensation for from the province for our fire department providing that medical first response. And so with that, we've developed this resolution that is asking for those dollars. We'll note, it's noted in the report too, that late last year, the Alberta EMS Provincial Advisory Committee released quite a lengthy report that examined all the different ways to improve EMS service within the province. A couple of the recommendations did mention the medical first response model and how they saw it as a component of providing better service, and they did make in a couple of their recommendations suggestions that there be a funding model explored and implemented for that. The health minister did indicate earlier this year that they were accepting all the recommendations of the report. And so this would be furthering that and pushing the province to move towards the funding of that medical first response model.
All right. A couple of people in the queue. Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I was ready to move to business, but if there's some with questions.
All right. Councillor Blackmore. All right. Go ahead, Councillor O'Connor.
Got to hit the mic thing. Just wondering, do we have a seconder for this, or is that from the province? Is there another municipality that's working with us?
Mr. Tarrant?
Yep. Through the chair, we do have a couple municipalities identified that would potentially support. Our fire chief and deputy fire chief are both at a fire chief conference this week, and they're going to be socializing it with several and finding out who's all on board and looking for the second from there. And the second can come anytime within the next few weeks, so we're not pressed by a timeline on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bressie, Business Rising.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move that Council endorse the Alberta Municipalities resolution regarding provincial funding for medical first response. And just to speak to this, for me personally, this isn't about improving the financial lot of municipalities, although that's often a priority. But for me, this truly is about service provided to our residents. Our firefighters are responding more and more to residents who are at a really risky moment of their life, or maybe the worst moment of their life. And while they're great individuals that are really strong professionals, they're not always trained and equipped for what they're being asked to do. And I know for me personally, if we receive more money from the province, I know I'd personally be advocating that goes into training equipment for our firefighters so they can provide our residents with a higher level of service. And so I would encourage us to support this so that there can be funding to properly deliver the service that we're being asked to provide more and more.
All right, that motion is in order. Discussion or debate on the motion, recognizing Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I'm really proud that this resolution is coming forward from the City of Grande Prairie. I think this is a province-wide issue that has been addressed. As far as looking for partners, I know that I've seen mainstream media reports from Edmonton, Calgary, and Red Deer all addressing the pressures that they face in those city centers with EMS. and how the fire service has to step in more frequently than they would like to. I just like to also thank our members of the Grande Prairie Fire Department, our administration here at the City of Grande Prairie, and our IAFF representative for bringing the data to light for us. Really helped at least me personally as a councillor to understand the numbers, to see how frequently it was happening, and recognize that this is almost, well, it's almost beyond crisis levels. So I'm really proud that we're putting this forward, and I don't think we'll have any opposition to a willing partner. So thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Thiessen. Seeing no one else in the queue, I'll call the question. Please vote. And that motion is carried unanimously. Thank you for that, Mr. Tarrant. Moving on to item 7.5 of today's reports. Mr. Halliday, I'll give you a couple of minutes to get set up regarding a building purchase.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So administration is recommending the purchase of the building known as Bandaged Paws, 1222010 Ave. To speak to the background on this, in 2021, the Edmonton Humane Society, who are the current owner of the building, approached the City of Grande Prairie with a potential sale of their property. The property is a 9,000 square foot industrial style building forming part of a condominium plan adjoining the Regional Pound, owned and operated jointly by the City of Grande Prairie and County of Grande Prairie. The property is currently leased at a non-market rate to Bandaged Paws Animal Rescue Association, a registered charitable organisation and non-profit in Grande Prairie that provides rehoming and adoption services to the Regional Pound. In December 2022, the City of Grande Prairie contracted the services of a third-party independent appraiser to determine the property's current market value. Value was determined at $920,000 and indicated for maintenance at that time. Two independent engineering companies were then employed to inspect the building on behalf of the city and determine the condition of the property and the existing mechanical system. Based on the findings from the condition reports, the city and the county administration entered into an offer to purchase agreement with the society for the amount of $750,000, with funding split 60% by the city and 40% by the county. The agreement is subject to conditions of the City and the County Council approval. Lease renewal with the current tenants, who are Bandaged Paws, and negotiation of the service agreement between the tenant and the City and County. So with that, the administration is recommending the purchase of the building, split 60-40 with the County of Grande Prairie.
Right, open it up. Questions for administration. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton, and thank you, Mr. Halliday. So the purchase price that we're looking at isn't out of the scope with what the Edmonton Humane Society paid for the building?
Mr. Halliday?
So through the mayor, when Edmonton Humane Society purchased the building, they purchased it for $650,000. There has been numerous building upgrades since that time. So taking into consideration both that and the condition reports, we came to $750,000.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor Blackmore.
In my motion that's on my e-scribe, I don't have a funding source. I have little arrows, which would be great if we could all use that to fund things with.
Ms. Whiteway.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. The recommended funding source is the Future Expenditures Reserve.
Thank you.
So I'll imagine that you can read between the lines in the arrows there, and you'll be. Yeah.
I can make the motion.
Oh, now it's there. Magically appeared. All right, Councillor Blackmore, go ahead, please.
I would move that Council approve the joint purchase of condominium plan 0421648 Unit 1 for $750,000, 60% or $450,000 from the City of Grande Prairie funded from the Future Expenditures Reserve, and 40% or $300,000 from the County of Grande Prairie.
Thank you for that. That motion is in order. I did have a question pertaining to the motion as noted. Mr. Halliday, we are confident that our great municipal partners are prepared to pass the similar motion.
Now, through the mayor there, yes, so they have slated a special council meeting for Wednesday afternoon. The city will appear as a delegation there to present the same information.
Great. Thank you for that. All right. Seeing no one else in the queue, I'll speak slowly because I saw Councillor Bressie move quickly. I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Halliday. Moving on now to committee business. First in today's agenda, the Public and Protective Services Committee meeting held May 23. And I'll turn this over to Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move the council adopt the minutes of the Public and Protective Services Committee meeting held May 23rd, 2023, as presented.
Thank you for that. That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue with questions or comments or errors or omissions, call the question. And that carries unanimously. A couple items of business today. Councillor Bressie, the first one, Southeast Grande Prairie Firebreak.
Thank you. I'd move the council approve the construction of a firebreak in partnership with the County of Grande Prairie and the Province of Alberta for $1,250,000 funded from the Financial Stabilization Reserve. And just to speak to this, I think this is an important project to protect not just private homes, but also vital infrastructure such as our water treatment plants. This is something that I'm grateful for the province being willing to have it on Crown land and be a funder for. And I think it makes sense for municipalities that are going to benefit from it to partner with the province to make sure that our residents and our community are protected.
All right, thanks for that motion. That is in order. Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Yeah, just speaking in favor of this, again, Councillor Bressie touched on not just homes and businesses, but again, the loss of a couple of homes or one business would equal about that amount. But when we look at our neighbors that have evacuated entire towns, the economic impact for that is quite substantial. And even if we have to evacuate part of our city, the economic impact would dwarf this 1.25 million. So to me, I find this is a solid investment, not only in our residents and our homes and our businesses, but the overall economy. Thank you.
Thanks for that. I see no one else in the queue. I'll just jump in briefly. I mentioned it in roundtable 2 weeks ago, but I think that it's important to recognize the nimbleness of our county partners, our municipal partners, as well as the province of Alberta in being able to act on an as-needed basis and be able to put this together so quickly. It really is a testament to the commitment that not only our municipal partners have, but that our province has to this region. So with that, I will call the question. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move the council increase the maximum number of hens authorized by a livestock exemption permit from 4 to 6. Just to speak to this is a request we received from a delegation a few months ago. Before we considered the request, we asked administration to give us a complaint about hens that they had received. The report we got is since legalizing urban hens, there's not been a single complaint about legal permitted hens. There's been a few about unpermitted hens that have been dealt with, but the people that go through the permit process have proven to be responsible pet owners who don't disturb their neighbors. I also want to note that this doesn't just mean that anybody that's got 4 hens currently automatically gets to get 2 more. There's requirements, including they need to have a bigger coop to accommodate those new birds, and they need to re-go through the application process so their neighbors have a chance to have input into it, and so their staff can make sure that they've got what it takes to take care of them. I think we should support this. It's what some residents want, I think, especially as we're facing increasing food scarcity in our community and people having troubles getting food. Giving people more ability to grow their own protein, I think, is a wise course of action.
All right, comments or questions on the motion? Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I'm really happy with this motion. Happy that administration came back with this response. You know, a lot of us were just out at FCM, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference in Toronto. One of the sessions that I took up was the ripple effect of food production, and a lot of what they were advocating for in that session was how municipalities can become more food secure and create sustainability within their community. Amongst those conversations, I was able to brag about Grande Prairie's edible landscaping policy, which is a new concept to many of the other interprovincial municipalities. So hopefully they'll take that idea with them and run with the Grande Prairie Go. But adding chickens and beekeeping and stuff was very much on the list of priorities for food security. So this is timely and national in its interest.
Great. Thanks for your comments, Councillor Thiessen. Seeing no one else in the queue, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Moving on to your next item of business, Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I've actually asked Councillor Berg to make this motion on committee's behalf.
Recognizing Councillor Berg.
Yes, I would like to move the council approve allocation of funding for the Grande Prairie Traditional Powwow as presented in Appendix A. And I believe the funding source, in Appendix A, part of it was the Council Strategic Initiatives Fund, along with large-scale tourism. So that's the motion.
Okay, so that motion is in order. Opportunity for discussion, debate, amendments. I'll recognize Councillor Blackmore.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Clayton. $25,000 of this funding is coming from large-scale tourism. We have a process where applications are required in order to access large-scale tourism. And while there is $25,000 remaining in that fund, the Grand Powwow was not one of the organizations that applied for that funding. So while I can support sending money or support giving finances to the Grand Powwow, I cannot support it coming from large-scale tourism. I believe that when we ask organizations to apply for funding, they do that and then they're turned down and we give the funding to an alternative option. Looks poor for us and it's frustrating for those organizations. So as the motion stands today, I will not support it. However, if our finance department were able to come up with an alternate source for the $25,000, I would be more likely to support that.
So I'll turn it over to our CFO. I guess, Ms. Whiteway, do you have suggestions? I personally have a suggestion, but I'll refer to you for opportunities for other funding streams.
Thank you, and I do appreciate that, Mayor Clayton, but I am actually going to turn it to you, Ms. Cajolet. She does have a recommendation within her service area.
Thanks for that. Ms. Cajolet.
Perfect. Thank you, through the mayor. One option in lieu of utilizing the large-scale tourism event grant could be the 2018 legacy from the Summer Alberta Games. So after the Legacy was divided, there was a small amount of cash remaining that came at a later state. There is $25,000, just over $25,000 available to the city that could be utilized for that purpose.
So, Ms. Councillor Blackmore, if you'd like to amend the motion based on that line item of the appendix. I think there are a couple other people in the queue may have other suggestions. So feel free to amend, feel free to wait till we see how the rest of the conversation goes. I'll leave it up to you.
Before that, I do have one additional question for administration. We do have an Arctic Winter Games legacy, and I'm wondering if there's any funding there. As we are talking Indigenous money to Indigenous events, I think it's a good parallel. However, that is an operational matter, so I would not pick it as a hill to die on.
So maybe Ms. Cajolet, you had some comments in regards to the Arctic Winter Games Legacy Fund in regards to whether or not this request would qualify as a suitable event in that funding stream.
Perfect. Thank you, through the mayor. There are certainly some criteria related to the Arctic Winter Games Legacy Fund, although it is definitely intended as a celebration of international sport and culture. One of the criteria is that the event really focuses on youth, which this necessarily won't do. For the Arctic Winter Games Legacy Fund, representatives of both the city and the county of Grande Prairie have to make the funding decisions. The other, there are some logistics related to the application process that this grant doesn't necessarily meet. However, it would be up to council's discretion to make that decision.
So it was Alberta Summer Games that we're taking?
For the 25 of it, yep.
Correct? Okay. I would move that I would amend the motion to read that funding source for the $25,000 be Alberta Summer Games, that $5,000 comes from arts and culture, that $4,095 come from gift in kind, and $40,905 come from the Council Strategic Initiatives Fund, which is the total of $75,000.
Okay, so that is an amendment to the original motion. I will recognize Councillor Plott, and then I will is this for discussion and debate on the amendment? Councillor Plott, go ahead.
Well, the amendment, I guess the funding source was important to me, but I'm still trying to understand. I thought at committee, this was, the paperwork wasn't 100% filled out properly on this application. Am I wrong in thinking that? Or was it 100% properly? Everything's in order, we're just trying to find a funding source.
Ms. Cajolet?
Thank you, through the mayor. This event, a delegation presented to council. Council asked administration to identify a funding source for the event. So this was administration's recommendation for that. There was not an application process as part of the large-scale tourism grant.
Okay, so this is more an appetite from us wanting to have this event more than a group or association doing all the diligence and bringing it forward, if I'm understanding that?
Ms. Cajolet?
Through the mayor, yes, that would be correct.
Okay.
Just had a comment on regards to your amendment. I like your amendment in regards to using the 2018 Summer Games legacy. I actually don't support the Council Strategic Initiative Fund as a funding stream for this. As mentioned by Ms. Cajolet, the Arctic Winter Games legacy criteria is relatively specific. It does include that there be consideration for youth. In all my understanding and in the relatively small number of powwows I've been to, there are youth participants, there are youth engaged. The powwows really embrace youth to learn more about that traditional dance. However, there may not be as many youth participants as laid out in the criteria. So to me, the Arctic Winter Games Legacy Fund is a perfect funding stream for this. What we'll do is we'll vote on the amendment, because I can't amend an amendment. So we'll vote on the amendment, which has currently at this point as stated, and then I will amend the amended motion if it is successful. So no other discussion or debate on the amendment. I will call the question on the amendment. So that is carried 7-1. I would now like to make a motion to amend the amended motion to reflect that $40,905 dollars be funded through the Arctic Winter Games Legacy Fund. I think that my preamble previously was pretty clear on my reasons why, so I'll open it up for discussion or debate on my amendment. Seeing no one, I'll call the question on that. Sorry, I'll give you a minute to catch up. Perfect. Thank you for that. Please vote. And that carries unanimously. So now to vote on the main motion, which would have us council approve allocation of funding for the Grande Prairie traditional powwow as presented in Appendix A, as amended. Councillor Berg, anything to close on? Recognizing Councillor Plott, sorry.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I just wanted one more question from Ms. Reisham. Was there a STEAM assessment and everything we present? Like, had we done that level of on this, or was there anything presented? Like, I just don't remember that.
So, Ms. Casually, on the previous powwows that were that were hosted in the city of Grande Prairie, have we done STEAM assessments?
Through the mayor, no, my understanding is that that has not been done.
Okay, and is that normally an expectation for events when somebody comes forward in the community, or is that?
Ms. Casually?
Thank you. Through the mayor, certainly would be an expectation related to sporting events, but we haven't done them the same way for this type of cultural event. Certainly could be something that we look at. One of the challenges might be related to ticketing, but something we could certainly explore.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Plott, did you have interest in having further discussion on that? All right, Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. Happy for the work council's done to identify appropriate funding sources, and with that in mind, I'm excited to support this motion. In my mind, it's actually, frankly, kind of ridiculous that we don't have a powwow in Grande Prairie right now. I think it is just part of Canada's culture going back hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years. And I think that we should be having an event like this. So for council to provide appropriate seed money so that one can start up and start up very well, I think is very appropriate. And I'm looking forward to seeing a great event put on. I'm looking forward to seeing the community support I know it'll be able to generate in future years after they put on an incredible event.
All right, thanks for those comments. Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I, too, am very excited to support this motion, and the way the funding sources have laid themselves out is perfect. I think, as Administration Council, we lay out a good process for many groups in our community to be able to apply and do all that. I think sometimes there's room for the special ass at the table, but at the same time, we want to make sure we're not setting precedents. We don't want to repeat here. As for the powwow, yes, I look forward to it returning to the city of Grande Prairie, since it's already done 2 years here, and in 2018 and 2019, and only was slowed down by the pandemic that we all experienced. So it's nice that they're getting their dancing shoes back on and coming back and stepping up a level. And I look forward to being there when they do the powwow as well. Thanks.
All right, thanks for your comments. Councillor Berg to close.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I just think that this will be a very rich event for our city, very colorful, very passionate, and something that everyone in the community can take part in and embrace. And so it's a sharing of cultures and of tradition, and it's something that I really look forward to. And I thank administration and council for, again, finding the proper funding sources for this.
All right, thanks for that. I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Bressie, any highlights left from your meeting?
Great. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. We also received a report on detox and treatment wait times for people with addictions in our community, and I think recognition for committee that there needs to be more and quicker opportunities to help people that are in a tough state of life. But along those lines, in our Director's Service Area update, we heard about the 103 city-supported supportive housing units that we're going to be having coming online by the end of September in our community. And I think that's very good progress that I was excited to hear an update on.
Thank you for that. Councillor Thiessen? Well, you're in the queue first. Okay, Councillor Blackmore.
I'll let Chris go ahead.
Councillor Thiessen.
Well, here we are fighting over who gets to talk. Normally that doesn't happen at council. But thank you for your grace, Gladys. I'd actually like to make a motion, if I could, involving the large-scale tourism fund. At committee, I wasn't able to have a chance to make a motion or to add a lot of input into the decision. But I would like to move that we allocate $25,000 worth of funding to the Grande Prairie Stompede. Speaking to this motion, we still have money left over in our large-scale tourism funding account, and yeah, we could always general rev and put that to a surplus later on, but I think it's all about making sure that we have events happen. The Stompede is a legacy event in our community, and one that's been a staple for many, many, many decades. They've proven their sustainability and, quite frankly, have been relatively successful these last few years. When they first applied for large-scale tourism, they're coming from a deficit point, and they're actually, in requirement of the money. I think one of the ways that they were evaluated was that because they were successful, it actually worked against them because they had built up reserves in case we have a rainy week during Stompede week. But I think it's equally important that we as the community of Grande Prairie support our regional events, especially ones that provide such an enriching experience to our people and show off the culture that helped create Grande Prairie and the pioneer spirit. I also would like to point out that it's largely volunteer run. Well, it is entirely volunteer run. And so for them to fill out the application is a lot of work of spare time from somebody out of their life to make sure that this comes forward. And they haven't made a request to council for this funding since 2019. So I think for all those reasons and in good faith, I think I would like to make this motion, and I hope council will support it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for that motion. The motion is in order. I'll recognize Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'm actually going to speak against the motion, not because I think that Stompede is not worthy, but I know that there were 3 applications that came forward to our administration regarding the $25,000. I, not having access to the detailed applications, have no way of discerning which of those 3 applications would be most worthy of receiving that $25,000. To me, that's a recommendation that needs to come to us from the granting committee that receives that information. So I would certainly support giving the $25,000 out, but not at this council meeting, and not because a councillor has been approached by the organization itself asking for funds. I still believe that the process requires the applications be judged one against the other. And so I would ask council to defeat this motion and send it back to administration for reconsideration.
All right. Thank you for your comments. I am going to recognize Ms. Cajolet.
Thank you, through the mayor. The Community Advisory Committee has reviewed the applications, and prior to recommending funding for the Powwow, the recommendation from that committee was to fund the Alberta Special Olympics event with the large-scale tourism grant.
Sorry, say that again, Ms. Cajolet.
Thank you, through the mayor. So prior to incorporating the request for the Powwow, the recommendation from the Community Advisory Committee that reviewed the 3 applications was to allocate the large-scale tourism grant to the Special Olympics.
Okay, so just to firm up, there was a recommendation that the $25,000 go to Special Olympics.
That is correct.
Appendix A is identified large-scale tourism. It's now been changed in regards to the Powwow. There's a funding stream there. So there's still only $25,000 left in large-scale tourism, correct?
Through the mayor, that is correct.
Okay.
But if I could ask,
Yep.
were they one of the 3 applicants?
Through the mayor,
Ashley?
yes, they were.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'm a little bit confused. I thought I wasn't realized we had fully subscribed the large-scale tourism funding. It sounds like
Second round of applications, and that was what was left. Yep.
so. There's the 25,000 we're debating now is the only funding left currently.
Ms. Cajolet.
Thank you, through the mayor. Yes, that is correct.
I'm actually still going to support the motion. I think to Councillor Thiessen's comments, I think Stompede's partly being turned down because they've been successful in the past. I'm not saying I would support this moving forward. I think we'd have to look at this being a legacy event or something else. But you know, we just supported a $75,000 event for Powwow, and I'm sure it's going to be a great thing for our community. It will probably have nowhere near the economic impact that the Stompede has for our community and continues to have. So I just think if we're going to give out money to events, I think this event does a lot more in our community than some other events have. Maybe they have too much money in the bank, but I do think it's an event that I think if our community didn't have, we'd be really remiss. So I'm fine with us having it as a legacy line item of $25,000. I know it doesn't fit the intent of the current funding. We've talked about funding streams around these events for as long as I've been on council and the wording on them. And so my gut is just saying I think we got to give $25,000 to the Stompede because I just think it's the right thing to do.
Before I go to Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Berg, a question from Ms. Cajolet. I don't recall, but I know there was conversation at standing committee in regards to what the opportunities would be for Special Olympics if it was not funding through large-scale tourism. Can you remind me of where the funding opportunities would be for the Special Olympics?
Thank you, through the mayor. The intention would be to bring forward a capital budget business case, either for mid-year capital budget for this cycle or for next year's business planning.
Okay, perfect. Councillor Thiessen.
O'Connor.
Sorry, he was in the queue first.
I did have my thing in the queue. I had a question, but I've already answered it for myself. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I just a question for administration. So, because it was an approved request for the 25,000 to the Special Olympics, is that not a required? That's what the committee is recommending.
Ms. Cajolet.
Thank you, through the mayor. If I'm understanding the question correctly, the Community Advisory Committee did recommend that funding would be allocated to the Special Olympics.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Yeah, I'm still kind of on the fence on this one, but the main thing that I always do when I'm looking at these is I don't necessarily look at the want, I look at the need. And everything that we've approved so far on my term has been needs and not necessarily wants. And as we've discussed, and I'm a former board member of the Stompede, so obviously I'm a big fan of it. It's a terrific event. I see this as a want and not a need at this point. Although, again, I could be talked into it. But going forward, what I think we should possibly do as a council is perhaps look more at a sponsorship than a grant. And so that's something to move forward for, and not necessarily for debate today, but that's just my mindset on how we should work with organizations that are in a great cash position, such as Stompede.
All right. So I see no one else in the queue. Councillor Thiessen to close.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I don't think I'm going to spend a lot of time on the mic. I gave my appeal to council. I'd just like to point out that when we received this report last Tuesday, the recommendation coming forward from our administration around the Special Olympics was it was not recommended, and that a business case will be submitted as part of the 2024 capital budget, which I think is perfectly all right. We can figure out a funding source and maybe even large-scale tourism for that event then. I don't believe that they'll go without. I think we'll have a business case and they'll build their own business case as well. Again, one more time, I think this is something that maybe we're limited by the language inside of the actual policy of the large-scale tourism. A lot of times it says that we're encouraging new events, and that's cool. But at times in the past, we have had older events come and apply for this type of funding. Not just myself. I know Councillor Blackmore said a member might have talked to a council member, but I do recall many members of council talking to the Stompede board over this past year and encouraging them to fill out an application for this because of how important the Stompede is to the community culture of this part of our community season. So I would again encourage council to think hard and vote with your heart, but I hope your heart will lead you in the direction of granting the Stompede this money. Thank you.
Thanks for your close, Councillor Thiessen. I'll call the question. Councillor Thiessen, how do you vote?
In favor.
Councillor Thiessen in favor, and that is carried 5-3. Moving on, sorry, give me 1 second. I think that is everything from, yes, the Public and Protected Services Committee meeting. I'll move on now to item 8.2. Financial Administration Services Committee meeting of May 23rd, and I will open this up to Councillor Blackmore for introduction.
I move that council adopt the minutes of the Financial and Administrative Services Committee meeting held May 23rd, 2023 as presented.
The motion is in order. I'll call the question.
Councillor Thiessen in favor.
That carries unanimously. Some highlights from your meeting, Councillor Blackmore.
Yes, a few highlights. One is that tax notices were mailed out on May 19th with payments due June 30th. And so people should have received their tax notices by now. If you haven't received it, or if you're in a new house and you haven't received it, it would be pertinent for you to contact the tax department at the City of Grande Prairie. Alberta Land Titles is about 2 months behind in registering new titles, and so there's a good chance that we have sent your tax notice to the wrong landowner. So make sure that you look after that so you don't fall into arrears. Accounting staff continue to work through some new processes with our relatively new ERP software to ensure the necessary data for all reporting is in fact being collected. And in the ITS department, Microsoft Teams voice implementation is now complete for all city departments and is in the process of being completed for the library and the RCMP. And that is everything.
Thanks for that, Councillor Blackmore. Moving on to the Invest GP committee meeting of May 23rd. I will turn that over to Councillor Plott for introduction.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I just make a motion that Council adopt the minutes of the May 23rd, 2023 Invest GP committee.
Thank you for that. I'll call the question. Please vote.
Councillor Thiessen in favor.
And that carries unanimously. Some highlights from your meeting, Councillor Plott.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. Again, we had an update from our Economic Development Department, and we've had another 8 businesses opened up, so totaling 107 new businesses in the year. Under the urban renewal stream, we had 246 candidates have been endorsed, and 358 employer applications are in progress. For events and entertainment, we were using the Bonnet Center as a evacuation reception center. That's since been closed, but I want to thank the team for doing a great job and for people going through the hardships to have that spot to go in. And I know the comments I had back were great on it. And lastly, we had a couple open houses for our MDP review just to get feedback from our community.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Moving along to item 8.4, the Operational Services Committee meeting of May 23rd. And I will turn this one over to Councillor Thiessen as Councillor Bosch isn't here today.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Boss is second here, moving that we approve the minutes of the May 23rd Operational Services Committee meeting as presented.
Perfect. That motion is in order, so I see no one in the queue. I will call the question. Please vote. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Thiessen, some highlights from your meeting.
Yeah, definitely. There are some good highlights here. In energy and environment, there have been 17 applications currently received for the Clean Energy Program, with upgrades totaling approximately about $480,000. That's from the efficiency upgrades, including items such as the building envelopes, HVAC, and heat pump systems, as well as solar PV. I know Councillor Bressy was one of the people looking into that system. So for everyone who benefits from it, tell your neighbors, because this is a good deal going for anyone who's looking to green up their household energy. Also, facilities, the outdoor pool was filled last week. Chemical balancing is underway, and the official opening is scheduled for June 3rd, which will be this Saturday. Also in parks, administration has been actively involved in the Grande Prairie Fire Department Urban Wildland team, initiating last week and assisting them on 2 fronts, both the removal of encampments to prevent any other burning of our river valley by accident, and also the removal of potential ignition sources and cleaning up our river valley so that, with the fires that we experienced recently, that didn't come right into the center of our town. Approximately 90,000 pounds of wood fuel was removed from there. So it's good that we're doing that. We know what happens when you have too much fuel in the ground. Fort McMurray can answer to that, and we're happy that we're being proactive in that sense. And speaking of being proactive, we had a verbal presentation from Mr. Case de Vries, the Director of Parks, on naturalization. And to that committee recommended that administration bring back a report on fire smart procedures around long grasses, household building envelopes, and other things that we can do to prevent fires from spreading in our community. Timely and hopefully effective. We look forward to that report coming back. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Councillor Thiessen. Moving on to item 8.5, the Strategy and Communication Services Committee meeting of May 23rd. And I'll turn it over to the committee chair, Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would like to move council adopt the minutes of the Strategy and Communication Services Committee meeting held May 23rd, 2023 as presented.
Thank you for that. The motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue with comments or questions, I will call the question. Please vote. That carries unanimously, and you have a couple items of business today, Councillor Berg.
I do, Mayor Clayton. First off, I would like to move council give first reading to Bylaw C-1422B, being an amendment to the boards and committees bylaw. And speaking to this, there's a couple of changes in here, and one of them is the entire removal of the Municipal Policing Advisory Committee. As we all know, we had our first meeting for our new Grande Prairie Police Commission, and to avoid redundancy, we have phased out the Municipal Policing Advisory Committee, and again, now established the Police Commission. The other one is the removal of councillors voting on a couple of committees. So one would be the Economic Development, Strategic Planning and Advisory Committee. Council will be non-voting, as well as the Youth Advisory Committee. As much as I think Councillor Bressie is very young, he's just a little bit old to be voting on that.
Thanks for the introduction, Councillor Berg. I'll look to my colleagues for comments or questions, discussion or debate on the motion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. That carries unanimously. Councillor Berg.
I would like to move council give second reading to Bylaw C-1422B.
Thank you. So this is a second reading, opportunity for discussion or debate. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question. Councillor Berg. Sorry, that carries unanimously, and then I'll turn it over to Councillor Berg.
For the third reading, I would like to move council have third reading of Bylaw C-1422B at this meeting.
Thank you for that, Councillor Berg. In order for us to have third reading here tonight, this motion must pass unanimously. I see no one in the queue, so I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would like to move that council give third reading to Bylaw C-1422B, being an amendment to the boards and committees bylaw.
All right, this is third reading here tonight, so an opportunity for discussion or debate. Seeing none, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Thank you for that. Moving on to item 8.5.2, Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would like to move council give first reading to Bylaw C-1384A, being an amendment to the Council Code of Conduct bylaw. And just summarizing these changes, what we're looking to do is basically hold ourselves and our council members accountable for attendance. And there's a few exceptions that we've included in here, such as medical, or if you are on council business out of town. But again, this is just simply an accountability to ourselves and the team that you've elected in.
Perfect. So that motion is in order. There is no discussion or debate on first reading, so I'll call the question. That carries unanimously. Councillor Berg.
I would like to move council give second reading to Bylaw C-1384A.
you for that. Comments or questions on second reading? Seeing no one, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Berg.
I would like to move council have third reading of Bylaw C-1384A at this meeting.
That motion is in order. In order for us to have third reading here tonight, this motion must pass unanimously. I'll call the question. Yep, we can. We'll just reset the queue for that. So, call the question. That carries unanimously. Councillor Berg.
Thank you. And to close, I'm glad that Councillor Blackmore is now on our side in accountability. So I would like to move council give third reading to Bylaw C-1384A, being an amendment to the Council Code of Conduct bylaw.
That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue, I will call the question. Councillor O'Connor, how do you vote? That helps. Not just mine. That's carried unanimously. Apparently. Thank you for those, Councillor Berg. Any highlights from your meetings?
Yes, thank you. Service area update. Mr. Tarrant did the presentation as our acting chief of staff. Corporate marketing, the marketing campaign for the Grande Prairie Police Service successfully underway. Salesforce integration is moving ahead, which will allow better forecasting and analysis for sales and sponsorship. Administration is also reviewing the draft brand strategies from the consultant and looking forward to that. HR, Municipal Leadership Academy program, will begin in September. Intergovernmental Affairs, Administration assisted local Indigenous organizations in hosting a smudge at the Bonnett's Energy Center for evacuees from the Sturgeon Lake First Nation, which was devastated by fires. And multi-department staff have been involved with the fire response over the last few weeks, and I know that we have taken every opportunity to thank them. I did get to the evacuation center one day and was pleasantly surprised to see many of our City Hall staff reallocated to there and helping out people in times of crisis and emergency. So thank you.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Councillor Berg. There are no items of correspondence today. As you recall, there is no delegation business. There are no notices of motion. We're not having a recess tonight, so I'm going to go on to council member reports, and I'll start with Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Lighter agendas the last few weeks for sure, I'm finding, but a couple highlights. I had an airport meeting, mostly on a planning level. The event that I want to highlight the most was the Grande Prairie Catholic School District's Educational Foundation's Gala of the Arts last Saturday that Councillors O'Connor and Berg were there. I really enjoyed the event. I feel like I'm stuck in gyms most weekend watching sports. It was the opposite, and it was a breath of fresh air in a lot of ways, and always amazed but just the talent in our region. I'm always blown away with how much talent is around here. Outside of that, I actually had an opportunity to drive around and see the areas that were all evacuated during the recent fires, and until you drive out and see it, I have to give even more kudos to. There's spots where I don't know how the fire department and how the teams got some of these fires under control in some of those areas, and so some of the houses were saved. So going out and seeing it firsthand was an eye opener for me, just how much work was done out there. So thanks again to the teams that were doing that.
Thanks for that, Councillor Plott. Councillor Thiessen.
Oh, we're zigzagging today. I like it. All right, cool. Well, I have three events and then a conference that I'd like to highlight. The first event that I'd like to highlight was right here at City Hall on May the 17th for the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. It was an honor again to be able to raise the flag and to support inclusion in our community. And I was joined by several members of council as well as the mayor who gave greetings. One particular thing that I did enjoy was that we opened up the microphone for people to tell their stories. Now normally there's a scheduled program, but this is an open mic, so you get that raw, real this is my experience, and some people get really vulnerable about telling their stories. So I appreciated that. I know the crowd appreciated hearing their stories as well. And hey, we're getting right up into Pride Month here pretty soon. So it's appropriate, I think, that that flag is flying up here at City Hall. Also on May 18th, I was able to, with Councillor O'Connor, go and do the municipal development plan review with several of our city planners, which was a good exercise and something that we do in engagement in our community quite a bit. It seemed that at 6 o'clock p.m. there seemed to be a bit of a disruption from a group of people that came in, and they were there specifically, I think, to disrupt the process and not to learn or to understand what the municipal development plan actually does. But I want to send out a good shout out to our planners who are on site, Yemi, Zeal, Allison, Corbin, and Joe. I know it wasn't always an easy crowd, but I was happy to be helpful where I could and try to put out some of those fires. And yeah, your work is worthwhile. So this municipal development plan is our guiding light for the next 20 years as to where we're going with this community. So I think it's important that as many of our citizens engage, and hopefully rightly, and our planners to put in the work and the effort and time on their own time to present that as well. Also on May 19th, I got a little teary-eyed as I watched the Grande Prairie Composite High School graduating class of 2023 graduate. And I got teary-eyed and misty as I was watching them all walk down the aisle. And I realized, shoot, my son's going to graduate next year too. And then I imagined him walking down the aisle and me standing there with his mom. And I was just like, oh. Some kid looked at me like, what are you crying over? I don't even know you. I'm like, oh, my son, a year from now. But it was really great to take that in with Councillor O'Connor and Mayor Clayton. Finally, I was able to take with several members of council the FCM conference this year in Toronto, Ontario. I did speak a little bit about it earlier, but yeah, a lot of the sessions that I took were around agriculture, sustainability, and housing. No big surprise there. But it was really good and heartening to hear that the Alberta agriculture situation is similar to the Nova Scotia agriculture situation, as well as Ontario, Northern BC, and Manitoba. So to be in those sessions and to hear our delegates and farmers presenting, saying, hey, we need to get the politics out of the policy of farming. Heck, farmers know what they do. There's a science behind it, and we have yields that we need to maintain for our own food security and stuff like that. So it was good to see that across the country there seems to be a pushback against things like the nitrogen policy that would limit the amount of food production that our farmers can do. I also managed to take in a speech from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, as well as the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, Miss Melissa Landsman. It was a pleasure getting to meet her as well, too. I think we have a lot of ideas in common. I wish I got to spend more time with them. Finally, speaking of spending time with people, what better way to spend your time than with family? And I had lots of opportunity to spend with my uncle Glenn Fuel from the regional municipality of Springfield in Manitoba, which FCM seems to be the reconnection date for us every single year. So it was great to be able to talk with him about issues in his community as well as in ours, and where those similarities are, as well as catch up on the family stuff. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clayton. A few things worth highlighting is I was out of town for a few days. I got to go to an Alberta Municipalities, our annual board strategic retreat. That was great. I got invited to attend a meeting of Rehoboth Christian Ministries, which was a room full of about 50 people with disabilities and their helpers. And they asked for some updates about what the city's doing to increase accessibility in the community, and it was great to get a thumbs up on a lot of things we're doing, and especially a thumbs up on said accessible transit seems to be getting better all the time and is pretty good now. They did have some specific ways that they'd like to see things improved, but there's always progress to be made. It was great to get lots of kudos on the things we were doing. I got to take part in the Swan City Showdown this weekend, so that's the big disc golf tournament of the year, so thank you to all the volunteers that made that happen.
Did you win?
We won't talk about my score.
Oh.
Sure, that's what we'll say. We'll say I don't like to brag. But the real highlight for me was the first meeting of the Police Commission. It was somewhat a boring meeting because it was really an organizational meeting mostly, but I do want to both congratulate and thank Dan Wong, who was elected the chair of the commission, and Natalia Ryman, who was elected the vice chair. And I think that the commission's got good leadership under those two. It was good to start having some early discussions about the budget. It was also great. We had some discussions about resolutions at the Alberta Association of Police Governance, and there was some healthy disagreement amongst the commission there. So I can already see that it's a group of smart people that's going to have really good conversations back and forth and really wrestle with how to shape the best possible police service for this community. So it was really heartening to be at that first thing. And last thing I'll highlight, of course, I went to vote this morning, and I assume/hope everybody else in this room either has or has plans to before 8 p.m. tonight. And I hope that if anybody is watching this that hasn't voted yet, that they get their butts out there before 8 p.m.
Thanks for that, Councillor Bressy. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I voted on my way to council meeting today, Councillor Bressy, just so you know, so you're comfortable knowing that I voted. It was not, I can't say the poll was particularly busy when I was there, but there was a steady people coming in and out. I attended my 48th high school reunion the weekend before last, which is fairly astonishing. I still don't know why we had a 48th reunion instead of like 45 or 50, but it was well attended. So we had a graduating class of 100 people in Beaver Lodge, which was a big graduating class, and more than 50 of us showed up for this reunion, so that was great. It was great to see people. I also went off to Toronto to FCM, and I want to talk about the one education or study tour that I took that I found really interesting. It was a study tour of a grassroots music studio space called It's Okay. So this group engages small group musicians and concert promoters who operate outside of the regular promotions and concert tour circuit. And I attended that because I recognize and really appreciate the number of musicians and artists in Grande Prairie who go along having concerts in the evening and doing art installations kind of all off of the side of their desk while they're all working full-time on other jobs. And I wonder if we give these talented people sufficient support as a community. So I was interested in going to this event. In Toronto, they connect culture with economic development. So their department is economic development and culture. And interestingly enough, they have an office of creative spaces. So this office manages all of the spaces that City of Toronto owns, but which are not currently in use, or perhaps they're underused for, maybe they have 20% or 25% occupancy. And so the Office of Creative Spaces is tasked with the job of finding something to do with the un or underutilized spaces. And one of the things they've done is to open it up for organizations like It's Okay to run concerts or art shows, or to use it as a studio space, even if it's for a limited time. So the space that we visited will only be available for 2 years before it is demolished and another actually low-income housing is built in that spot. So I thought that it was a really interesting concept, and Grande Prairie, the City of Grande Prairie does not have a lot of underutilized or empty buildings belonging to the city, but we do have a number that belong to private industry. And it makes me wonder if this is a way to better support arts and culture in our own community. So it was interesting to see. I don't think that we are yet ready for an Office of Creative Spaces, but maybe one day in the future. And speaking of Grande Prairie's music scene, I want people to remember that you should get your tickets to attend the Rural Alberta Advantage, who will be performing with Northbloods on June 13th at the Bow Centre. Both of these are really raucous groups that will knock your socks off, and I really encourage you to attend and give your support to arts and culture in the city. So that's my report.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Councillor Blackmore. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Just want to report I also attended the Municipal Development Plan on the 16th and the 18th, and I thought our staff did a wonderful job, even though they were disrespected. And I just want to shout out to Joe, Corbin, Yemi, Nair, and Allison that you didn't deserve the comments that were thrown at you. And I just want to make sure that you know it will not be tolerated again. Went to the Composite High School commencement. It's so energizing and innovating to be there. Went to the International Museum Day and served cake until it was all gone. And so they provided free bus rides to the Veterans Memorial Garden and the Dinosaur Museum at no charge. And I thought that was a wonderful add-on. Went to the Grande Prairie After 5 mixer at Grande Prairie Public School District at the new comp. And that was great. Had to leave. Went to the first meeting of the GP Police Commission. That was wonderful. And then got an opportunity to bring greetings to the Filipino Association GP's first ever binning event, where they had 10 contestants compete and sing and dance, and that the number 10 contestant blew my socks off. She was only about 3 foot something, and boy, was she captured the crowd. She won Miss Congeniality, Miss Photogenic, and the first ever Little Miss Grande Prairie for the Filipino Association. She was blown away. And also went to the gala at the Arts, and we cannot believe how much talent we have in this community. These people have gone on and come back and are world-class entertainers. So to the arts. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Councillor O'Connor. So you're all aware and you don't get upset with me, I'm not forgetting Councillor O'Toole. He has asked that he will miss today because he's not in appropriate space to tell the world about what he did in the last 2 weeks. So Councillor O'Toole is in travels back from FCM, and I know he'll update us with his many activities next go around. So Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. Just building off the Gala of the Arts, which again was put on by the Catholic School District. I was absolutely blown away by the sheer talent. Now, again, I brag about the talent that we put out to Neil, Brad Mates, on and on and on. But again, national champion, provincial champions in grade 4 in piano, in dance, in music, quite literally North American first place finishers in some of these disciplines right here in our city. And these are areas of the arts that I can't say that I was particularly familiar with. So seeing it so vibrant and at such a young age, it absolutely blew me away. So congratulations to all of the instructors and teachers that are working with the youth to continue to develop culture here in the city. I also attended the Chamber of Commerce event at the new Comp High School, had a nice chat with Principal Bobeda, and he is really looking forward to the new sports facility that will be adjacent to the comp. He's already got some terrific ideas and new initiatives that he wants to bring in. And the conference that I went to was down in Denver, and a couple of highlights from that was around revitalization was one that I found quite fascinating, and how our older communities within our cities, there's a shift from grandma's house to investors and even corporation. So the discussion was around how do we maintain these area home values and the wealth and maintain or increase property values and save them from depreciation. And one thing that did come up was incentives for first-time home buyers on some fixer-uppers and turn these into some different family neighborhoods. And then I did take in one that was just for pure fun. And it was about flying cars. And essentially it's using drone technology that will have 4 or 6 passengers. And they're saying, this was presented by the city of Orlando, working with NASA. They said that they're getting ready for it because they've got Disney and they've got NASA right there, that it's coming to Orlando. But they said the first time that people will see it, most likely common in the world, will be at the 2028 Olympics in LA. So that was quite fascinating. And again, nothing relevant, but again, just some good fun at one of these conferences.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Councillor Berg. I don't have a lot to add that wasn't already mentioned. I did attend the All Candidates Forum with some of my colleagues. I just want to give a shout out for those who may be watching. I think it's extremely valuable for those who attend, but also I think it's important to thank the people that choose to put their hand up. Running campaigns, as those around the table know, isn't easy work, but those who chose to put their hand up and represent what's important to them need to be thanked for their time, their effort. It's significant work. It's demanding on their family, on their friends, and for everyone that chose to put their name forward, thank you. I attended the Composite Grad, which was a good warm-up for me, as my son does graduate this year. And unlike Councillor Thies and I did not cry this time, and I don't plan to cry. Yeah. Anyways, I wanted to, one more thing I wanted to mention, had an opportunity to attend the Federation of Canadian Municipalities this past week in Toronto. Some great, valuable discussions on various buckets and areas of interest as noted. I do want to mention that one that I thought was great, I ran into a past friend from the political world. Sandra Jansen is now the general manager of external relations for Metro Vancouver. So it was excellent to have conversations to talk about the similarities that we're seeing in Alberta of collaboration between municipalities and where the opportunities are. So that was a great opportunity to run into her and have those conversations. And although we are significantly smaller than the municipalities that she works with, we are doing great things in collaboration. So I think it's something that we need to continue to shout from the rooftops and be proud of. I wanted to give a quick thanks to Councillor O'Connor. All those of you who take the time, or I guess you don't really have a choice, but those of you who end up serving as Deputy Mayor know that it is significant work filling in for me when needed and supporting the Mayor when needed. So thank you to Councillor O'Connor for that. And with that, I think that's the end of our meeting today. So I'll call the meeting adjourned, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.